Let's hop right into to Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines. Michigan fans, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button here on the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. Look, it's going to be a mixture of emotions for Michigan fans. It's a mixture of emotions for me. It is. On one side of the coin, I am just grateful for Jim, his time here, the fact that he beat Ohio State the last 3 years in a row, turned the tide of that rivalry, which then in turn turned into 3 Big Ten championships back to back to back, and then back to back to back appearances in the college football playoff, capped off by the final year, as we all know, ended in a national championship. So on that side of the coin, look, man, Jim Harbaugh came and set out to do exactly this. He accomplished it. He's following his dream to go back to the NFL and compete for a Super Bowl. I'm happy for him. On the flip side of that coin, for me, it's the unknown that is scary, right? I think the known is that we think we know Sharon Moore is next in line. We'll see. That's not been finalized. Hasn't come out from anywhere from the Michigan Wolverines football program. We'll have to wait and see their timeline for naming a new head coach. But I think it's just for me, Brant, it's the uncertainty of what's next. And what I mean by that is we had such dark days for so long, and the coaching changes after Lloyd Carr left, and the Rich Rod, the Brady hoax, and in the back of my mind, I'm just like, we cannot go back there. My mental health cannot take it. We cannot go back there to that spot. And I don't think we will. But is there that little thought in the back of my mind? Absolutely. It's in the back of all Michigan fans' heads. Like, we know what those days were like. Now, I also believe that there has been a true culture established at the University of Michigan that even as Jim Harbaugh leaves, I think that this program is running like a well-oiled machine. They're teed up to compete every single year. I don't think that's going to change, but is there some uncertainty? Yeah. Is there an uneasiness knowing that it sounds like Jesse Minter is going to follow Jim Harbaugh, to the NFL? Absolutely. Like, this coaching staff, this is what really turned the tide in 2021. After the abysmal 2020 season, Jim Harbaugh went and hit the reset button, brought in a new coaching staff, and completely flipped the culture around. Now, the true testament to any culture is when the leaders leave, does the culture live on? And I believe, for one, that they have done that. And we will live to see that in a matter of months, and we'll have to see how things shake out. But I do feel good about the way Jim Harbaugh has left his football program. But I understand it's going to be a mixed bag of emotions for Michigan fans. And so, Brant, those are my thoughts. What's going through your head right now?
I'm not in shock. I'm not in disbelief. I'm happy. I'm so happy. I'm still riding the high of the national championship, Dave. And I think you texted me earlier. Build a statue. Get the statue up. He deserves it. He's earned it. Jim Harbaugh delivered on everything that he said he was going to. I had to quickly, before we got on here, I had to listen to some national pundits. And on the Cover 3 podcast, that's a CBS situation there. One of the guys was like, you know what? You can either hate or love Jim Harbaugh, but you got to admit his time at Michigan, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to cover. He was quirky. He's weird. He has great sound bites. He's like, we're thankful as college football fans. I mean, these are not Michigan fans, but he's like, I'm thankful that I cover college football and we had a dude like Jim Harbaugh in the game that really great football coach, one, but also always delivered, was in the news, whatever. And to see him climb the mountain that he didn't get it done for the Super Bowl, to see him win the national championship, it was like kind of a feel-good story kind of at the end, Dave, that he took his alma mater, got it back to where he thought it should be, and now he walks out the door with it in such a better spot. And you touched on the culture and stuff like that. I'm absolutely ecstatic for him, Dave. Like, I think he's earned this opportunity. I think he'll do well with the Chargers. I think it's a weirdly good fit for Jim Harbaugh to land with the Chargers. One, the Chargers are kind of a weird, quirky franchise as it is anyway. They're the number 2 team out there. Um, you know, I think Jim Harbaugh will do well in Los Angeles with the Chargers. But as far as what it means for Michigan, Sharon Moore more than likely will be offered the job, and he will step in seamlessly. I believe that to be true, and I expect um, maybe I don't expect to be an 11-win team next year, and that's completely okay. But I expect things to still be going in the right direction. I don't expect to blow out loss to Ohio State. I don't expect to blow out loss to Oregon or something or to Texas to get beat by 4 or 5 touchdowns. Like those types of things, I think, like you said, in the Brady Hoke era, the Rich Rod era, those things aren't going to happen now. The recruiting is too good. The transfer portal is too good. The NIL situation at Michigan is too good. And I think those guys, the coaches there now, have learned under Jim Harbaugh, how to run a program and what it should look like. And I expect this program to not exactly miss a beat as they move forward without Jim Harbaugh. And one of the other things, um, you know, that they said on the national show was it's nobody can deny this. It was a resounding success. Like it is an absolute 100% success story for Jim Harbaugh. And boy, Dave, 3 years ago, it did not look that way. And I'm smiley because even saying that out loud, it still feels a little bit surreal. Like it's a resounding success. It's not 99% successful. It's 100% successful. And I know, Dave, if you want to touch on this right now, we can or whatever. But you know, he walks out the door with the allegations still lingering over the head, the black cloud over the program still. I think that takes some of the sting out of what the NCAA might do to Michigan. I think Jim Harbaugh's kind of done them a favor by sliding to the side and kind of taking one for the team to say, hey, if they were going to come after me, they might dock you a few scholarships, but they'll probably leave you alone overall. Your thoughts on that?
I agree. I mean, I think that yeah, he did. I think the NCAA's pressure and heat that they're going to bring on to Michigan, because this is not the end of the sign stealing stuff or what have you. There's still more to come. I do think it lessens the blow. They've wanted this has not been an NCAA against the University of Michigan thing, as some people might think it feels at times. This is the NCAA hunt on Jim Harbaugh. And that's what and who did they want all along? They wanted Jim Harbaugh, and they got him in a sense, but in another way, Jim got them, and he got the last laugh. He suspended for half of the season. They couldn't quite get rid of him, and he comes in and it was unanimous. That's a 15-0 season, even after the sign stealing saga, and undefeated national champions in a blowout national championship game that turned into in the last couple of minutes. Look, Jim's gonna say peace out on the way out. I'm off to the NFL. As John Harbaugh kind of made a joke about the sign stealing stuff to the media after their most recent win in the playoffs, he mentioned scouting and looking at everything teams do, and he said, "By the way, you can do that in professional football." And he kind of chuckles and laughs. And so, look, everyone, and it's not a chuckling or a laughing situation, but look, it became that towards the end. And I think the question for me that I pose, and I just will always kind of wonder is, do I think that Jim Harbaugh wants to win a Super Bowl and that's the main motivation for him to go back to the NFL? Absolutely. He wouldn't have flirted with it basically every year since he's been here if he wasn't interested in it. I do wonder if the NCAA wasn't coming so hard at him over this past year, and he's just coming fresh off a national championship. There is no cloud over him, the program. Like, I do wonder if he's more inclined to stay at Michigan and see this thing through and try to win multiple national championships. Maybe. But we'll never know that. I don't even know if those closest to Jim Harbaugh will ever know that, because Jim is one of one, for better or worse. So, Brant, any final thoughts on Jim Harbaugh before we shift into the Lions?
No, I just think it's super important to remember how different that team looked from 2014 to 2015. And even though they lost to Utah in Jim Harbaugh's first game, how different it looked. They just looked more physical. They looked like they had their stuff together from a program that didn't have their stuff together. I'll be interested to see in Michigan's first game against Fresno State. While not a great team in Fresno State, like a good football team that you need to be prepared for. And then obviously week 2 against Texas, you'll find out in those first 2 games if the Jim Harbaugh culture is standing strong or if we're doing some sort of crazy sort of stuff that maybe we shouldn't expect to see. But Dave, we have 6-7 months to go over all of that, and we will get into all that.
Hey, my last question for you. Sorry, I did want to ask this is there a name outside of Sharon Moore that you have interest in bringing in as the next head coach of the Michigan Wolverines? Or is it Sharon or bust for you?
I would take a look at some candidates. I really would. I think you need to do your due diligence. I don't know if you bring in a guy. I've heard the name Brian Kelly for whatever reason. I have no interest in Brian Kelly, Dave, and I know you don't either. But I think you do need to kick the tires on some folks. I'm not talking Deion Sanders stuff. I'm talking about young, decent coordinators, coaches, and whether you give them the job or not, at least get them in the door. And maybe Sharon could use them after you interview them as offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. Bring in some guys, get to know some culture, like see if their culture ideals match your culture ideals, and kind of use the head coaching search as a coordinator fill in potentially. I think.
Yeah, I think Michigan is most definitely going to do that. I think that's going to be the process. That's what good organizations do. You're going to leave no stones unturned. You don't want to leave somebody that's out there. That's the next big thing in college football. You don't want to miss out on that. So do your homework. For me, as it stands today, right now on January 24th, there's no name. There's not a name that's out there in my head that I'm like intrigued by outside of, to me, the safe bet. The Jim was already handing the keys over to Sharon this year. uh for me, Sharon's the guy. I'm not saying you don't do your homework. Absolutely go do it, but he knows the culture. He's been the culture. You talk about a team that has been built in the trenches. Nobody knows the trenches better than Sharon Moore. And I just think that he's the perfect candidate. He's not even 40 years old yet. He's got a lot of career ahead of him. And I think he could make this thing his own. I think, look, those that have this vision of like, well, now Harbaugh leaves, is Michigan going to turn the page into like the 21st century of college football? Nope, I don't believe that. I think if it's Sharon Moore, they're going to continue to run the football. They're going to continue to be tough in the trenches. And, as long as they retain Ben Herbert and from a strength and conditioning standpoint, I think you're going to see the exact same identity that you saw under Jim Harbaugh.